Hello. Hello, hello. You can hear me? Yay. I do not have a teacher voice, so I need a microphone. Thank you all so much for joining. It's so nice to see everybody. Welcome to Beyond Voice, When Parents Shape the System. Super excited for an engaging conversation with all of you. I'm Bibb Hubbard, CEO and founder of Learning Heroes, and I'm really excited to be on stage with these incredible warrior women leaders who are going to share a little bit about the work they're doing on the ground and engaging families as co-creators and co-builders. So I'm going to introduce, here we go, Trenace Dorsey-Hollins, Executive Director, ParentShield. Then we have Maribel Gardea, Co-founder, Executive Director, MindShiftED Parent Institute. Woo. And, of course, Keri Rodrigues, co-founder, founding president, National Parents Union, woo! Of which I was a founding board member. Super proud to wear that. So a little bit of context before we dive in. As we've been talking throughout the day, it's about building forward, building together. You heard the opening session with Francis and others about co-creation, co-design. But what does that actually look like? What does that mean? How does that happen? Our system was not designed to engage families in particular in that way. And we now have an incredible opportunity, and shame on us if we don't redesign in a way that centers education around families and their children and their hopes, their dreams, their aspirations. But also, to quote that incredible student today, we shouldn't think about parents as participants in this endeavor, but as partners. And so I think that mindset shift, and Kemi was saying this earlier at lunch, that mindset shift is really an important factor as we think about moving forward. And so I'm eager to dive in, but before showing you some slides, Learning Heroes released a national report last fall called Centering Families in the Future of Education, 10 years of insights based on 10 years of research. And so I'm going to share some of that data throughout our talk today. But before showing my seminal slide, and if you've seen me, you're going to know the answer to this, but just in case, we know parents, obviously, their perceptions matter in terms of what actions they take and how they show up. And so just to get us started, what percentage of parents do you think believe that their child is reading and doing math at or above grade level? Just throw out some numbers. Oh, I love it. You guys know the data. Yay. Let's see if I can get my slides to turn on.
Only 10 years, Bibb.
I know, only 10 years, right? Hang on. Stephanie, can you help me? Wait, maybe I can just use this. Is that good? Okay. Oh, here you go. Thank you. So as you saw, or as you know, almost 9 out of 10 parents, regardless of race, income, or education level, have had this perception since 2016. And sadly, we don't have 9 out of 10 students who are performing grade level work. And that is because of report card grades mostly. Parents don't have a lot of access to information, so they rely on grades. Almost 80% of parents report that their children are getting all B's or above. And to a parent, a good grade equals grade level mastery, because they're not told that their 4th grader getting an A in reading is reading at a 2nd grade level. And that is because teachers aren't trained to say that. And so that teacher feedback doesn't happen often enough. And we also know that when parents do know, so the 10% who know their children are behind, they worry differently, they show up differently, they take different actions. And so that's why it's so important to make sure parents have access to a complete holistic understanding, have that information, that feedback loop in real time, to be able to make the best decisions on behalf of their child. And so with that as the backdrop, I'm going to turn to Keri and ask our first question here. So for Keri, for families to co-design, they need this clear, understandable, actionable information. So can you share with us how this has shown up in your work over the past 10 years? And just respond to that. And why does it matter?
So I'm going to answer this two ways. I'm going to start off personally, because this data has been around for 10 years. Bibb has been doing this work for a really long time. And I remember before I was the president of the National Parents Union, I was the founder of Massachusetts Parents United, which started in my community because my kid had been suspended 36 times in kindergarten, and I could see him falling through the cracks in real time. And me having lived experience, I was a former foster kid. I got expelled from public school. I have a GED from Boston Public Schools. And watching my kid go through that, I was like, this is going to stop with me. I started my own local organization. That's where I came from. And I was lucky enough to meet Bibb and started finding out things that I had no idea were going on in education. Like, I was just an average parent. And actually, I was a parent with my dukes up, ready to fight, because, oh my God, right? So when I learned about this, I can remember, and as you were kind of going through the slide, it was making me laugh, because I remember having gone through a Learning Heroes training and immediately going into my first parent-teacher conference, and I was so excited because I knew what to say. I was going to ask my kid's teacher, and I was already organizing, doing all this stuff, but I remember finally feeling confident because I knew the words to say to go in and ask a teacher, is Matthew reading at grade level? And the teacher didn't have a response for me and said, I'm going to have to go and see. And like, she wasn't prepared for that. But that was a game changer for me. So I'm going to say, first off, like, thank you, Bibb.
No,
because
you're doing the hard work.
Yeah, and the thing is that we put a lot on the shoulders of parents. Like, I just told you my lived experience. So again, now I have the system that's looking at me that I'm suddenly, when I get home from work, I'm supposed to be equipped to be a literacy tutor. I have to be an expert on AI, on social media, on mental health. I got to raise kids in Donald Trump's economy. Like, life is lifing for parents right now, right? And so there's a lot going on. But these expectations that we put on parents that we're just supposed to somehow know, like somehow when you give birth, you suddenly know the questions to answer.
Right.
Like, I was not equipped with that, but the system assumes that I'm supposed to know, and if I don't, it's my fault that my kid is behind and I don't know. That's wild. So I'll tell you what else was so inspiring about what I learned from Learning Heroes and just being equipped with this. So now that I'm the president of the National Parents Union, we've been organizing. We at NPU, we are not content just to whine about a problem. We want to see action, right? And so that has culminated in us organizing around literacy on the federal level. We have brought thousands of parents to Washington, D.C. We've passed resolutions saying September is Literacy Month. We've held people accountable. Now we're writing legislation. And we wrote something called the READ Act, which is about to be introduced next week by the chair of the Senate Help Committee. It has bipartisan support. We just held a congressional briefing 2 weeks ago on it with the Bush Center. And in that bill, there is specific language as the result of all of this experience around parental notification in all 50 states. You have to not only screen kids, you not only have to do all of the things that we know around the science of reading, you also have to tell parents. So parents don't have to do the heavy lifting once this bill is passed. It's the responsibility of the system to inform parents directly. And so I want to, again, thank you. This is the result. This is not just a PowerPoint slide. This is not just data we're talking about. Parents are going to be in the room, and if they're not going to write the legislation and do the right thing, we'll write it our damn selves and get it done.
Well, I love that. Snaps, Keri. And building on that, so you've just talked about what you've built. I'd love for Maribel and Trenace to also speak to, what have you built that's been responsive to families' true needs? And just to give some more examples along the lines of what Keri was just sharing.
I can go. So hey, everybody. So informed is not involved, right? That's the difference. And I think a lot of the times, and I'm just picking back off of Keri over here saying, it's important that we get the information, but that information is usually hidden 10 clicks into a website with really raw data that now I need to interpret myself, right, as a parent. And as a parent of a student that has multiple disabilities, it's another layer, right? On top of the data, now I'm asking you to show me data results for accommodations and goals, right? And so all of these different things. So number one, I remember when Keri was saying right now, yeah, I showed up the first time to a meeting with a principal and I felt so little. I felt so small in that room. I felt like I didn't know what I was talking about or what to ask. And that's a lot of us. That's not just me. And so as I started really realizing that this is the majority of our community, right? Our parents and even grandparents raising grandkids, right? They are much less connected. They don't know what's going on. They don't know what to ask. And so MindShiftED has really focused on building resources for families, but not only giving you a resource, but walking it, breaking it down in digestible formats, really doing exploratory like role play. How do you ask? Because one thing is me sharing, right, with you a bullet point list of how and what questions you can ask. But for you to get to that point and show up with confidence and show up that this is your space and that you actually are advocating appropriately, it takes a lot of level of confidence building and leadership. And so MindShiftED really has focused on their resources, teaching parents how to use that, doing role play, but really trying to build infrastructure within the schools to commit to actual parent partnership. And that's different from parent involvement or parent information or sessions, right? It's really being the co-creator within the system of the decisions that are being made at the table for our kids, because ultimately our kids are the ones that are impacted.
I love that. Trenace?
Hello. So a little bit about the work that we were doing to piggyback also on both these ladies. I too was concerned, like, why are parents not like knocking down the school doors when they were seeing this data? The data, like you said, the data's been there. But again, it was because we didn't know. We weren't given the information. We weren't explained, like Maribel is saying, training parents to understand what that data means to them.
Right.
So we knew what the data said in our city. But again, there was a disconnect between what parents knew and what they were doing. So we took matters into our own hands. That's when we hired our own certified teachers, parents. We hired our own certified teachers and was like, hey, assess our kids. Let us know exactly what reading level our kids are on. We're not going by just report card grades. We want to know exactly what reading level they were on and then what we can do, going forward. One of the things that came out of our assessing students was that we found that, one, there was a huge disconnect, which we all know, between the report cards and the grades that, kids were actually making. But even beyond that, the perception gap showed up a lot. 86% of our parents that walked into our assessments felt like their child was on or above grade level. And we had well over 90% of them who were well under grade level. What came out of that is a few things. We knew that parents were not getting access, to MAP and STAR data.
Yep.
We also knew that parents knew that their child needed tutoring, but it wasn't something that they were able to afford or had access to. So as an organization, we started providing our own tutoring. We hired our own teachers to provide tutoring to the communities that needed it most. And we started seeing tremendous growth, and we're able to share that growth with the schools. So it's like we're co-designing what we want to see for our kids and not waiting on the schools to do these things.
I love this. So this reminds me of Kim Smith's TED Talk this morning around agency, and that you're each bringing your local context, what matters most to you and your families, and the fact that you just are pushing forward, I think is a helpful bridge as we think about how do we make sure that there are more parents who have an easier glide path to be able to do this work. So just really applaud all of you. It's so cool. It gives me goosebumps to hear, so thank you for sharing that. And as we dial in a little bit more deeply and we think about parent mindsets, we are in a moment where we're talking about durable skills and career-connected skills and the 5 C's. And so, when we did this research a few years ago, we asked parents, we gave them a list of 60 different skills and traits and said, what's most important to you? And so these are what rises to the top for families. And so, Trenace, I want to ask you, as you're doing this work, how are you ensuring, as all of these new skills are needing to be developed and new measurements, new assessments. Like, how are you making sure that the families' needs, desires, like what they want to see happen with their children is reflected in what's happening in the school, and that there is that partnership?
For sure. I think it first starts off with informing parents. So informing them, educating them on what does all this change mean? What does it mean? What does it look like for our kids specifically? Once parents kind of have that understanding and are aware of the changes, that's the first step. Then it's like, what do you want to see for your kid, your child, your school, your community? And how can we co-design that together? So we've created board watch committees where our parents are actually going to the school board meetings, studying the agendas, reporting out. We create a graphic where we share with all of our parents so that everybody is aware, all the communities, what's going on at the school board meetings, what decisions are being made that are most impacting our kids. And not only are we doing the behind the scenes research, we also have a group of parents that show up to every single school board meeting. They're speaking, and so we wear green. This is our color, like lime green is our color. So when the school board sees us coming in, they're like, okay.
I love that.
Here comes ParentShield's parents. But we're showing up, and they know that we're going to be sitting in the front. We're educated on what's going on, and our parents are able to speak. And not only are they able to speak, but they're able to share with the community. We're speaking to the media. So we're getting media coverage from parents on things that are important. That also pushes the work forward, because not only are they hearing it, behind closed doors, it's being promoted and elevated to others. So now others are also aware of these issues and can also support the work that we're doing.
I love that. That's such a good concrete suggestion, so thank you. And again, like dialing in, Maribel, you mentioned this too, it comes up in our research as well. More and more students are being diagnosed with a learning difference. So it's about 41% of parents who say their children either have a 504 or an IEP. And yet we still have too many parents, and I think this is an equity issue, who are struggling to get that diagnosis. And so, Maribel, I would love to hear through your lens in particular, as we think about mapping our way forward, what are some of the practices that we need to take away in these rooms to help support families who are, as you said, the IEPs, the 504s are so confusing. So any suggestions you have along those lines?
Where do we start? You have to become an expert overnight, it seems, for all of us, I think, in many of our roles. And then we show up prepared, and then they're not sure how to handle us, right? And then we become the parents that are angry after realizing that for years we haven't really gotten what we needed for our kiddos. And so I think humbly asking you all to think through a different lens. A lot of the work that I've done in not only the work, but my personal life, is to show what it is to have a child with special needs. Because a lot of you all would not know that my son needs diapering, and he's 15. He needs intense support, right? He's nonverbal, but he uses a communication device. He doesn't sleep well at night, so I'm up all night. A lot of the times it's just give us a little grace, right, to show up in those rooms, but give us really honest feedback, information, and authentic numbers and data. I think all I want to know is he learning? And when I even asked those questions in the beginning of this journey, they told me, you're going to have to go and figure out how to test that, because we don't know how to test your son because he's nonverbal, and we don't, there was just all these excuses, right? I knew he knew how to identify what he liked. I knew he had moments of, anger, upset, all the normal things, but I agree. Right? There is no test for that. And so they told me to go to a university and figure out if I could find a assessment for him. And so, I think it's really opening up your lens and being genuine about curiosity about your families. I think it's really important. And if you all had the time to do those one-on-ones with families, I invite all my teachers to my home. I need them to see how we are working with him at home. I think a lot of the times we discredit parents' information or their knowledge, right? We're the experts in our kids.
Absolutely.
And that's discredited. We don't even get credit for that. We show up in a room with experts, and expect to navigate like experts, and we are, but we're not treated that way, right? We're treated as just, here's the paperwork and we're just going to check it off. And I think parents like us really want to dive into what's working, what's the progress being made, and how can we improve that progress? Is there additional things? For the most part in my entire journey, I felt like it was secretive to get some solutions. I felt like teachers would call me and they would be like, if you ask for this, they'll give it to you, but don't say that I said it. And then I was like, wait, why does this seem like this is a secret? And I started to realize that a lot of the times teachers and they're designed to not give you maybe not that support, but maybe not frame it in a way that you're going to ask for some additional resource. And so a lot of our parents just want to know what actual resources are available. And if we could just be honest at a table and have a conversation with honesty about what could happen, what kind of supports are needed, I think we would all be in a better space.
Yeah. And I know that, Keri, this is dear to your heart too. Do you have some specific strategies that you share with your members around supporting families who have children with learning differences?
Yeah, I'm feeling everything that you're saying right now, and it's very interesting. We often in NPU lean on each other. We lean on Maribel a lot for her wisdom. But I have to be honest with you. It's what Maribel is talking about is the lived experience that we're all going through right now. I actually took a picture yesterday because it's kind of ridiculous. I was helping out some of our members in Michigan yesterday who were literally being bullied in the middle of an IEP meeting. A mother who wasn't getting access to translation and interpretation of her IEP was being bullied into having her son's one-to-one paraprofessional taken away, trying to take away extended year services. Like, we know as parents, who have been experienced in the process, exactly what the playbook is. It's trying to do everything they possibly can to do the least for your kid. And again, just by virtue of being a parent, you don't know everything about the system, you don't know the language or what to ask for. So in MPU, we're kind of co-conspirators with each other. We share what we know. And frankly, going back to how I got into this work, period, it was other mothers who were kind of grabbing me by the shoulder saying, no, they can't do that to you. I'll go into that meeting with you. And that's why I still to this day will sit on the floor of Dulles, and hop on an IEP meeting with a mom in Michigan to say, nope, I'm sorry, is there an interpreter in this room? And we didn't get access to any data that you're presenting, and you're saying that we're going to continue to take more and more services away from this kid. Do you have any evidence? But I know those questions to ask.
Right.
And sitting with a mama 3 days before this meeting who was crying and saying, I don't know what to do, and they keep yelling at me, and I don't understand, and all of this. It's not fair.
Yeah.
But that's how parents get treated. And I got to warn everybody here, it's not going to get better, because what's happening on the federal level right now is an absolute catastrophe.
Yeah.
And I have parents, I was working with parents in Montana this week, in Colorado this week, who have been filing complaints with OCR because they're not getting what they need out of their IEPs. The IDEA Act is kind of follow it if you want to, because you're not going to hear anything from the system that is in place to make sure that parents have recourse. And what we're seeing proposed in the Trump administration budget would literally mean that about 31 people will be responsible for every single child in the United States, making sure that their rights are protected under IDEA. And so this is why we've got to show up on the federal level, because it's a catastrophe. Because if you can't get justice, and I can't be in every IEP meeting, Maribel cannot be at every meeting, and I'm sure you don't have time. Life is life for all of us, right? There's not enough of us to do it. That's why we pass federal laws. But this is the reality we're dealing with right now, and it's going to get real hard in the next year.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate that. And it's interesting. I've been, looking at this data over the past 10 years, and as it relates to teachers, one of the we surveyed teachers and principals around serving families who have children with learning differences. And the number one area of support that teachers said, by and large, was communicating with families. Like, they feel that they are not supported. And it was interesting, that was not the principal's perception. So there's also this disconnect with, like, the school leader not giving that teacher the support that they need.
Say something about that really quick, because I think it's really important, because I don't want to come across as like beating up on educators. You know, they are doing the best they can with what they've been given, the resources they have, and there are so many good co-conspirators. Like your experience with the teacher pulling you aside. Yesterday in that IEP meeting, there was a teacher sitting there who had already called us and said, listen, this is what we got to do. We have the playbook because we have good educators who are co-conspirators with parents and are helping.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, we're not setting them up for success. Like, we don't teach teachers bedside manner to, even if you have a generally matriculating kid. Like, I equate it to being a doctor, right? Doctors are taught about bedside manner. And sometimes you got to go in and you have to have a conversation with a patient and be like, listen, we got a tough diagnosis here, but here's the treatment plan, and we're going to work on it together. Teachers aren't taught.
They're not trained.
To parents in that way, to be like, listen, your kid's in a tough spot. They're, 3 levels behind on reading, but here's what we're going to do. They're not given that language.
Yeah.
And so they're kind of afraid of us sometimes.
Oh, they're terrified. No.
So, like, that's where we got to.
Yeah, when we survey teachers, we ask, like, why aren't you having these difficult conversations? And it's all fear-based. I'm afraid I'm not going to be believed. I'm afraid I'm going to be blamed. And oftentimes I'm afraid my principal's not going to have my back. And this is so solvable, right? We can absolutely train teachers to support families. Like, this is not rocket science, but it is not being done. And in the context of Build Next, we should be thinking about that teacher training piece front and center. But I was encouraged when we surveyed families teachers a few years ago. It was only 25% of teachers who said, I prioritize parent feedback and knowing how a child is achieving. And there was just some recent data released where it's now 40% of teachers who are saying that. So I feel like, yay, it's moving in the right direction. And to that end, we're about to switch into some audience table talk, so get ready. But to set that stage, Learning Heroes and TNTP just released a new study in March called the Engagement Advantage. And basically it's the evidence, the practice that schools who are outperforming other schools by engaging families as an instructional strategy, what practices they're taking. So there's some information on the table in front of you. I encourage you to check it out. But there are these 4 distinguishing factors that pop, and they won't surprise you, right? Mindsets, relationships, one-to-one communication about academics, and that leadership. That school leader has to have a vision for families integral into the success of their school. So with this, and then you guys are going to take a couple minutes. And this is Maribel's brain genius. I love it. And we're going to talk about what do you see? What are the practices you're seeing in your school, in your community, at your organization, and just thinking about them through this framework. Are these practices informing parents? Are they listening to parents? Are they sharing power with parents? And really thinking about that. So if you could take a minute, talk with your partners, get to know each other. We've got like 3 or 4 minutes, just to talk about what are the practices of how you see families being engaged. And then we'd love to have you report out to us, thinking about it through this lens, informing, listening, or sharing. Because again, as Maribel says, parent engagement is not powerful until parents can shape the decision. So I just love that. So take a minute, and then we're going to turn to the panelists to respond to what you have to share out. So get to know each other. Thank you.
How long is it? Just a couple minutes?
We have until about 2:15 for this. Then we do audience. They'll do a report out and reflections, and then this is to Oh, great. Oh, when they're, yeah. So I think. We've got 5 minutes.
Can you just give me like a 10-second countdown?
Yeah, I'm good at like, yeah. All right, wrap up your conversations, please. About 1 more minute. Okay. All right. We're going to come back together, finish up. Thank you for having such a great conversation. Thank you, thank you. All right. Who would like to reflect on your conversation, to share? What are the engagement strategies that you're experiencing or seeing, and how do they fall into the informing, listening, or sharing power? Oh, yay. Can you introduce yourself? Thanks.
This is not a good idea. Never give me a mic. Hi, y'all. I'm Dr. Christine Keck. I am the founder, CEO, all of the things of a school called the Meliora School, opening in Gwinnett County, Georgia, in August. So, very much our whole model is really put families at the core, which we've been really, really proud of. But something that we saw recently was I'm a former SPED educator. That is my whole life, and I care very deeply because I was a twice exceptional kid. But we realized we had a bunch of accepted learners events, and we're noticing that families actually weren't bringing their IEPs to us, and they would mention it, but not bring the IEP. And we're we are not creating a safe enough space for families to be able to be hey, my kid needs support. And we tried in a lot of ways of being hey, we really care about this. So we actually did an info session for our families to talk about specialized services for the community. And after that, we got 10 more IEPs, and we're great. And supporting families of if you need a para, we can put it into the budget versus trying to keep services away from kids. And so we were having that conversation at the table of how do we as leaders create a safer space for parents for them to be able to walk into our space and be I need support. Because from our planning space, we're how do we support kids in the best way possible and being transparent. And so that was some of our reflections in that space. And just creating a safe space for families so there's not as much combativeness because we're all working towards the same goal.
I love that. Thank you. Others? Oh, go ahead. Thank you.
How you doing? Bobby Jones, Greater Atlanta Prep, all boys 6 through 12. So I would love to say that what we're doing, what we'll do, is something I invented to know. So I spent 26 years in the Navy. We have this whole thing called Family Readiness Group. And basically in our petition, we just slid that over to the educational sphere. That involves the commanding officer, that spouse or significant other commanding officer, a trained ombudsman who relays stuff between the families and the people deploying, and actual service members' families. Why do we do it that way? This has been going on for well over a century. It's because you're able to, the give a damn factor. Everybody that's there gives a damn about what's going on. That right there is 70% of the battle. But then the other piece of it too is the translation of, hey, your son or daughter's gonna be gone, or a spouse is gonna be gone 9 months, right? All the things to expect, all the experience that others have, being able to directly relay that to people who are just joining this organization. Because it comes down to not asking questions, but the right question, right, at the right time, and how to ask the question. Those are the three major things that we have seen over the course of, like I said, centuries of doing this. You translate that into the educational space, you have someone that's in the upper administration, right, that is involved, but not necessarily the school leader, this, that, and the other. So my wife's already been told that's what she will be doing. She ain't got a choice, right? But she cares about the school, and she's, luckily enough, she's in education as well, right? So now we deal with, okay, what is the administrator that will be able to translate a lot of this stuff? Because the parents that we have on the south side of Atlanta, it's not that they don't care, they really care. They don't know how to ask, or when to ask, or what to ask, right? We need to help them with that process. And so in our battle rhythm, we'll be meeting every month. And then if there's something that pops up as needed, we will do that too. The number one thing that I have found in my life is the communication piece is the most important when dealing with someone else's child, someone else's loved one. They can absorb a lot of stuff if you tell them what's happening and why. So that's what our model is based on as far as engagement.
Thank you. That is really powerful. One more. Yes, thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Julian. I'm the founder of Emote. kind of want to speak to a little bit of what our table is talking about, not so much about our organization, but I think we were talking a lot about the context that supports this type of relationship between schools and parents or caregivers. And I think one of the big questions that stood out and stands out to us as an organization as we were building out parent tools and platforms is, actually, really quick background, I was a school founder, I'm a parent, and now on the solutions side. And being able to see how profoundly adversarial that relationship is, and how all of our solutions often feel like they're working through the lens that the adversarial nature is required. And really deeply curious and have no idea how, but how do we start to shift from an adversarial relationship to a collaborative one? And I know that's a huge question. But I'd be really, anyways, maybe I'm just actually not answering your guys' question, but I'd be curious to hear how you guys think about that.
That's a perfect segue.
It's like coming up in like so many different ways. Oh, sorry. I hear this from like a lot of school leaders and people who are creating schools and whatnot, or even like superintendents who are in hot water. Parents showing up mad and upset, and everyone's afraid of that, and they're afraid of making parents mad. Man, I love mad parents, because mad parents care deeply. What a gift. What a gift for parents with everything else they have going on in their lives, for them to take the time to go in and be so worked up about what's going on with their kid that they're going to come in and communicate with you. And I would just urge all of us, when you see a parent that's showing up, that's angry and mad and frustrated, and a lot of us, like, we come from cultural backgrounds that you don't understand, so we're big, and oh my God, there's so much fear around that. But when you see a parent showing up that way, it's because they are afraid. They're afraid that their kid is not okay. They're afraid that you're not going to take care of them, that you're not going to do right by them. And so if you can look at that person, at that mama who's coming in and yelling at you and say, wow, she's really nervous. She's really afraid that her kid's not okay. Her kid's not learning how to read. They're not going to progress. And then they start, catastrophizing. Oh my gosh, if they can't read, then they're never going to get a job and they're going to end up just like me in the struggle, man. That's where that comes from. And if you look at that and approach that with some humanity and say like, hey, this is fear. This is worry, this is anxiety, and what can I do as an educator to say, like, I hear you, let's walk through this together. And start to, like, it's human being lessons. Like, we gotta trust you that you love our children, that it's okay to leave them. Because I remember sitting at the end of that IEP table and looking about all of these folks that have master's degrees and are supposedly experts about my kid. And I was like, these folks don't like my baby and I don't want to leave him here with you. So that's where a lot of my anger and because I acted a fool at that table, let me tell you, absolutely, because I was afraid that Matthew was not going to be okay.
I want to add something on that because that teacher that called me and was, real secretive. Okay. That teacher, the first day that my son is in a wheelchair and he was 3 years old on the first day of school, and it was a class chaos, right? All mixed kids, fine. My first experience. And the teacher took me aside and said, I am terrified of having your child in my class, but I'm going to do everything that it takes for me to figure out how to support him. Okay. And that's all I needed. And that's all I needed. I knew he was going to struggle. I knew we were going to have battles. I knew that he was not going to meet the limits that we needed to meet for him. But she was willing to find a way to make me feel comfortable and also share that she was also worried about it, but she was going to do something about it. And as a parent, that was the best thing that could have happened to me.
Trenace?
I would just say it goes back to communication. There's so often that parents only hear from a teacher or a school when their kids are in trouble or when they're doing bad. So it's like building that relationship so that you know that I'm going to support you in the good, in the bad, and in the in-between. And that way I'm not just, having my defenses up because you're calling about something that may not even be a big issue. So I feel like just building those relationships, being real relational with your parents having that same approach with the teachers. We're all humans. And just keeping that door of openness.
Yeah.
Trenace, I want to just add, or invite organizations like ours that we can help you bridge that communication gap, right? I think a lot of the times you all brought it up, you don't get trained on how to communicate well. Leaders, even principals don't either, right? And a lot of the times parents are not prioritized. You see the budget cuts, what's the first thing that gets cut? Parent engagement specialist, right? It's not important. But that's really the foundation of your school. If a parent starts realizing that you're doing wrong by them, you bet they're gonna leave that school. And so if you're not forming relationships where you're being honest about the bad things and the good things, like Trenace said, then you're definitely missing the mark. Right? I think communication is the epitome of this work, and we have to figure out how to get better at that. We're just not there quite yet.
Yeah, no, I love that. So we're going to move into Q&A, but to give you a minute to think about this, what I've taken away here, the themes are like safe space. I mean, it's very similar, right? Safe space. I love your give a damn factor. That's so important that somebody cares. Again, that goes to that safe space. Benefit of the doubt. And, just to be able to confront that fear and that anger. And it's not about blame and shame. It's about coming together and being vulnerable, right? To that teacher to say, like, I'm really scared is a really powerful story to share, so thank you. So we do have some time for Q&A before we end up wrapping up. Like we have 8 minutes, according to Stephanie, precisely 8 minutes. So anybody, we would love to hear from you, and it can be a comment, a question, a reflection. Yes.
I guess my question would be, I assume you're having these type of conversations and you've had them for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Next year, what would you like to be different about this panel or this conversation?
Mm-hmm.
It's really tough, and that's a really great question, because I have been on panels for the last 10 years.
Yeah, totally.
And I got to be honest with you, I feel like I'm saying the same stuff all the time. Like, this is not rocket science. I feel like I'm giving folks human being lessons. Like, parents are not some kind of weird, like, hard to understand we are full grown adult human beings with emotional intelligence. So when we walk into a room and you talk down to us and you don't treat us respectfully, and you want to send us to your parent academy because you don't like our parenting and everything else, like, it's just flat out disrespectful. So I got to be honest with you, like, I literally have been doing this for 10 years on panels like this, saying the same thing. Treat parents with dignity and respect. Understand, these are our children, and sometimes you guys come at us like we don't even love or care about our own kids. And the other thing I would say is that please understand, and if you have not read Rebecca Winthrop's book, The Disengaged Teen, I would suggest everybody, I suggest it to parents, everybody. But what that really makes me think about is the kids that we send into schools. I didn't send my kids into school broken. I sent brilliant, wonderful, incredible little children. And these things I hear how people talk about kids these days, like, oh my God, our kids are better than ever. Man, they are brilliant, and they are going to do extraordinary things. And when I sent my Matthew to school when he was 5 years old, he was so excited about learning. He told me everything about trains. He couldn't wait to learn more about trains. I still know more about trains than I will never be able to offload this information. But he was full of sparkle and excitement, and he knew what he wanted to be. And at some point, he entered into an environment that stole that sparkle. That wasn't him. That was something the grown-ups were doing. And I want to have a conversation acknowledging the fact that there's a problem with us. So I don't want to be on another panel being asked, how do I better talk to parents? Like a human, like you talk to your friends. If you have a friend, if you want to be friends with somebody and you walk in and you say, hi, we're going to be friends, and we're only going to talk about the things that I want to talk about and I'm not really concerned about, and you treat them disrespectfully, who wants to be friends with you? It's really not that complicated.
You guys have a...
I mean, I think you hit it spot on. Like, that's it. And not only that, it's just also just remembering like we do care. We want the good, we want the bad, and just share that information. I think engaged parents make engaged kids. And when parents and teachers can work together, that makes impactful schools. And so that's the goal. So we know, like you said, it's not rocket science. So if we can do these things, then we know that we can show, the growth that we want to see for our kids and for our communities.
So we went on tangents because we're so passionate and we have so much to say, but I think the next time that we come back in a panel like this, we're talking about what kind of moment, event, even some kind of infrastructure change that you guys already are building during this next year, and what's working and what's not, right? I think there isn't anything in place sometimes in schools. And what I mean is, if you have maybe a parent, I always think about it like a onboarding. Like, how do you onboard a parent? And think about those times when we don't want to work in summer. Those are the times we still have our kids, right? And nobody's really talking to us. And we're really disconnected at that time. So in summer, I'm projecting for the future, right? We're going to come back and talk about how it went. You're going to start a little onboarding, a team building, leadership building, because ultimately, if your parents are strong and you're building leadership within your school is going to be strong.
Absolutely.
If your parents are weak and they don't understand what's going on, you're going to see that in results, right? So I would love to see what onboarding looks like for your parents to, number one, learn expectations, learn your names, right? I can't tell you how many times I've had parents that don't even know who the principal is. And the principal doesn't even want to speak in front of the entire school because they don't like that, right? So learn names. They know you by your first name. They feel welcome. You're sharing your expectations. They're sharing their dreams. You're going to assess what's needed. Because if you don't get to know these families before you start that school, we're already starting off on the wrong leg. So that's what I wish to see next year is what happened? What are the results? Let's talk about them and see how we can improve.
Love that question. Thank you. Other questions? Yes. Great to see you.
Thank you. This isn't exactly a question. I'm Carol Lloyd from Great Schools, and hi, all of you.
Nice to see you, Carol.
We did a survey recently that I thought was super revelatory. It was about trying to figure out whether or not, what were the indicators or that would show that a parent was willing to recommend a school. And what we found that there was an inverse relationship between the parents, not their opinion about the school's education, but their opinion about how the school communicated with them. Mm-hmm. So if the school communicated with them early and often and they felt like they were on that radar, then they would recommend the school. And then there is one other element that was also correlated, is that the parents who didn't feel like they were being recommended, they felt like they were missing out on opportunities. They were missing out on deadlines for new programs, finding out about that club that their kid would have liked to have joined. And so it's very concrete that their parents could be going to a school that's excellent, but they don't have a high opinion of that school if they don't feel like they're in the loop. Yep. And they feel like their kids are missing out. And maybe their kids weren't missing out because maybe there weren't opportunities they were missing, but it's how they feel about the school.
Love that. Any comments, you guys? On that?
I love that. I think, spot on. I think we all agree. I think if anything, we can leave here and start a communication plan on how you're going to communicate. That would be amazing. I think it doesn't take a lot. A newsletter going out weekly. Consistent weekly.
Predictable.
Touch points. Having language access at your meetings, right? Calling, even learning how to call a parent. I challenge everybody here to call a parent. Because that's like the hardest thing for teachers to do is like, oh my God, I got to call a parent. And what do I say?
Or a home visit, to your point, right?
Mm-hmm. Home visit. I mean, I'd be shocked, right? If somebody came, I invite them, but they hardly come. But I think that's like the biggest, like what I take away from that comment was communication. We actually started a compact, parents as partners, and we want districts to sign off. And you wouldn't believe how difficult it is for them to sign on to this compact that really just says you're going to provide me language access, you're going to communicate with me. And I have had no luck in this compact with all my superintendents, because if we can't sign that because X, Y, and Z, it's not that complicated. It's not complicated.
So maybe next year.
Can I add one other thing? Like, it's also about the quality of communication too. I love to hear about schools and frankly teachers that are willing to open up about themselves. Again, like, there's a lot of expectation on us as parents to share information about our kids and whatnot. We'd also like to know you. And you want to talk about building relationships and trust. Like, half the time, like, our kids just kind of get thrown on some lady's list. We don't even know who you are. We don't know where you went to school. We don't know what excites you. We don't know who you are as a human being. We got to leave our child with you. Like, a great way to open the door is to communicate, hey, here's who I am. Here's what I love. Here's my favorite sports team. This is what it gets me excited. This is my, like, just being, again, communicating on a human level so we can get to know you. Instead of just making this really, if you want transactional relationships with parents, you communicate in a transactional way. If you want transformational relationships, you got to get human with folks, and you got to open the door.
Amen to that. We have time for one more question. Anybody? Yes, great, in the back.
Yeah, it's actually not a question, it's just a piggyback.
Oh, good.
So we do this project in the beginning of the year. It's the What I Wish My Teachers Knew About Me, and all the students have an opportunity to share with their teachers, like,
I love that.
This is who I am as a person, this is my background, what my experience in school has been, and, you know, my hopes for this year. And then I just had this moment of, we should do, the parents have the opportunity to say what I wish you know about my child, what I wish you knew about our family, and then also for the teachers to share and the school to share, like, this is what we want you to know about us, and that could be a cool, like, beginning of the year onboarding, community building activity for
Love
the whole
that.
thing. And
Love that.
I'm going to try it this year.
Thank you. So just to do a shameless plug, Learning Heroes, on our website, we have a Dear Teacher letter that, for those of you who are old enough to remember Mad Libs, it's basically Mad Libs. You just fill in, like, this is my, as you were saying, Keri, like, my kid loves soccer, he hates tomatoes, he's allergic to this, our family loves,
We do this. Yeah, they have an amazing form that you guys can use. If you've not used it, definitely plug in to Learning Heroes. We use that. We partner with them, but we use that form a lot, and it's very helpful from the parent's perspective.
Can I add just a quick tip? There is something so easy you can do with your staff. We call it a lookbook. And that came out from some place that we went, I don't know, but I incorporated it into schools. So you essentially make a slide deck on Google, right? You put your picture, and then there's slight information, right? Like your title, contact info, your favorite movie, your favorite food. And you share that out with your staff, and you have them fill that out. That lookbook should live on your website. That lookbook could be printed. You can give that to your parents. Because remember, we leave our kids in your hands for a very long time. And we need to know who's there, right? And so a lot of the times I don't know half the people there. So that's just one tip. And the other one that I always forget, we actually have a communication book, small little book. It's called an education passport. So if you're wanting to see it, I have one in my backpack. I have two actually, in Spanish and English. And that does kind of what you all were saying. It's a book about your child's education. And it tells them if they need access to supports, whether it's devices or tools. And so I would recommend you do something like that, right? So that you can get to know, not only get to know your staff and the parent, but the parents and the staff and the child.
Like, I'm married to a 5th through 8th grade science teacher, Mr. L. And, he actually implemented this year, and, like, telling the kids and parents, like, I'm obsessed with Iggy Pop, and I know way too much about professional wrestling, and I'm obsessed with cake and all kinds. And it just, throughout the year, there have just been these moments where it's been an entry point. It opens up the door. It starts a conversation. There's an inside joke. There's something, and it's been really wonderful to watch parents open up in his experience.
Thank you. So I just got the stop sign. Does that mean we have to, like, stop at this moment, or is that like a wrap up? We have to stop. All right. So you heard the lady. This has been so exciting and so riveting. I'm so sorry that I lost track and got the stop sign. But thank you for your engagement, for your ideas. I know I'm inspired, and I hope you'll follow up with all of us to get even more ideas and to find community as we move forward. So thank you for joining.
Thank you.